So I think as a result of the new recording and release schedule of like pretty much backloaded to weekends, I don't think there's a ton of talk about Warner Brothers and Netflix just yet. There are a few things, but not a ton. But nevertheless, got plenty of feedback for this week from a number of emails, including a longtime listener returning after a bit of a break. So let's dive headfirst right into it. Starting off, as always, with John Rosler, who sent not one, not two, not three, but 4 emails. Not one, not two, not three, but 4. 4 stones. I had to do the Zorg there just for a second. And Fifth Element, fantastic movie. Die Hard in Space, love that movie. Anyway, John's first email that he sent, when was this? December 1st, so a week ago. This one was titled FLITE CHAT Email, Will James Gunn's Online Responses Backfire Eventually? And other DC questions. Well, let's see. I know he's got extra context for the James Gunn question. So he starts off with that first. He says, I see how often Gunn sets the record straight. Of course, he recently dismissed Forbes' claim that Supergirl cost $200 million. Yep, and that was some bullshit, too. Forbes, I saw that posted on Reddit. People talking about Supergirl has $200 million budget. So the break-even number is $500 million. It's so stupid. And we have a new reason, by the way, to hate scoreboard mentality, but I'll get to that later on at some point. Hopefully, we'll see. But he says he does enable some gatekeepers, though. Someone clearly threw shade at the DCEU Superman. Quote, how dare Gunn make a relatable, kind, and heroic Superman? A Superman that makes me smile again. End quote. Gunn, sorry, sarcasm. But I've been slowly distancing myself from CBM discourse these days, he says. But every once in a while, I get curious as to what James G. says. Do you possibly see Gunn's recurring presence backfiring? I have a fear that if Gunn contradicts something someone says, but this time the person has receipts against Gunn, would that end Gunn's web serving? What, like Mike Cernovich? You talking about like the alt-right stuff that got him fired from Disney? No, I don't think that's possible. I don't. Because I don't think he tweets like that and posts like that on social media anymore. James Gunn used to be extremely political. He was very, very political. And politics that I agreed with. Truthfully, right? Like he said a lot of things that his political leanings and his like outlook on whatnot, and this is back during the first Trump regime. There were a lot of things he said that I agreed with, truthfully, and it was because he was making such loud noise on Twitter, on social media, that Mike Cernovich and the alt-righters decided to try and get him fired, and they did. They did get him fired because they unearthed all the old horrible tweets from the trauma days in the 20 teens and whatnot, you know, all the jokes that at the time that were considered provocative that are downright unacceptable and disgusting today, right? And Disney fired him over the image that it presented, right? I don't think anybody has receipts on him like that anymore. I don't. And the problem also, John, is that what are receipts these days? You know what receipts are in social media land? Receipts are, oh, you changed your mind on something and you're not allowed to. I have a receipt on when you first thought this before you changed your mind. And I think I'm going to get over on you because you don't want to admit that you changed your mind. The only way that receipts work on social media is if you allow them to work. Receipts do not work on me at all. Because multiple times over the last couple of years, here and also on Twitter, back when I used to be on that site, I would post an opinion and then somebody would do the obligatory, like, searching through my, history to see what I posted before. This happened more with sports than it did with movies, TV, and comics and whatnot. But someone would go, this you? And post one of my old opinions that was contradictory to the opinion that I was sharing. And my response would always be, and will continue to be, yes, I changed my mind. Yes, I thought this way beforehand. Yes, I'm a human being allowed to change my perspective on things. If that's what you think you have receipts on me for, well, then you're in for a rude awakening. Because one, you're going to get blocked, because I don't give a shit about, I'm not entertaining that noise. And two, you have nothing. You have absolutely nothing. How is that going to stop my surfing? Oh, catch him in a lie. No, social media is full of bots, trolls, and liars up the yin-yang in the first place. People that spread misinformation and disinformation all over the place. No, I do not think that James Gunn has anything to worry about with respect to receipts. I'm curious about what was it that he responded to here. I'm going to go look, because I'm guessing this was on Threads. I want to see the entirety of this exchange. All right, I found it. So this is from November 30th. This was posted by somebody called Aura in Comics. I've never heard of this account. Has nearly 600 followers. I guess husband, father, God first, news panels, memes, movie clips. Yeah, this sounds like an account that I would not follow. But yeah, okay, so they post a bunch of pictures from Gunn's Superman movie, and he says James Gunn totally ruined Superman by making him a symbol of hope, making him someone who thinks all life are equal, and also making him act like a real superhero. How dare they do that to Superman? And Gunn did respond and say, sorry. Now, that's all Gunn said was just, sorry. Now, here's the thing. Nowhere in this post does it mention the DCEU or does it mention Zack Snyder. Now, look, do I think that it was shade at the DCEU or previous incarnations of Superman? Probably Zack Snyder's Superman. Yeah, I do think that this person probably did feel that way, but he didn't say it. He didn't directly say it, John, and that's what you have to understand, is if the name Zack Snyder had been anywhere in that post, or if DCEU had been in that post, I don't think Gunn responds to it. I don't. Personally, I think he leaves it alone. Or says something more diplomatic in that regard. Because again, he has no shade for Zack Snyder. He has no ill will towards his incarnation of Superman or his movies. He has great respect for Zack Snyder and would not say anything to trash him in that regard. So I think that this is a case where, like a lot of social media, fans make a bigger deal out of it. And I would say that this is a nothing burger in that regard, because he most certainly did not contribute to any shade. However, this Aura and Comics individual that I really don't have any, I have no inclination to follow this person because their account just does not look like anything that I want to pay attention to. Regardless of how that person feels, James Gunn is not piling onto that sentiment. I think the fans look at it and go, "Oh, look at that," and it turns into a narrative that Gunn did not buy into. He just was responding to the wording in that particular post. So whichever. And if people want to sit there and go, well, clearly he was throwing shit. Listen, that's your business. You can die on that mountain. You can make that mountain out of a molehill and die on that hill as long as you want. But I most certainly think it's a nothing burger and a nothing issue and something to certainly move forward from in that regard. So no, I would say that no, I do not see Gunn's presence, a recurring presence that is, backfiring, because I think he has a lot of experience from past situations, especially the one that got him fired from Disney, to inform him going forward. So let's see. Question 2. He says, maybe it's my age and how long I've been a part of the DC movie fan groups, but I'm kind of glad I don't really pay attention to what my friends say or do anymore. They've made it their life's mission to hyperfixate their DCEU or DCU obsession. I'm at a point where I just don't care anymore, he says. I don't care how critics feel about a movie. I don't care about how much a movie makes anymore. I'm pretty much, if that looks good to me, I'll see it. If the superhero trailer looks good to me, I'll see it. Any whispers in my circles of what they think of it won't matter to me as much. Mark Hughes theorizing we're getting a Super Friends versus Legion of Doom movie or a Justice Gang versus Injustice Gang movie until I hear it from the horse's mouth. I couldn't care less, and I also used to be friends with him too. Do you think I'm starting to get the concept better of shouting into the void? All the people who live on social media now is like that Macbeth quote. Life is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. It sounds like it. It sounds like you are learning the appropriate lesson with respect to social media. And yeah, the last piece that when Mark Hughes was talking about like all the numbers and whatnot, and I made a comment about all the editorializing that he does. I don't need that. I don't need any of that editorializing. I don't give a shit what Mark Hughes believes we're going to get in the DCEU. The DCU rather, pardon me. The only person who knows for certain what we're getting in the DCU is James Gunn and Peter Safran. That's it. That is it. And when they announce what it is, cool. I will, receive it then and give my opinion on it then at that point. But yeah, I'm done with speculation. Absolutely done with speculation. And yeah, this gives me an opportunity to bring up, when you were talking about the you don't care how much a movie makes anymore. Like that, it occurred to me, somebody brought this up. Like I saw, I think Slav, one of his videos, there was somebody talking about how the conversation in movies has shifted. We're talking less about the art and we're talking more about the business. And that's entirely true. When you get on social media, how many people do you see talking about the art of movies compared to people talking about budgets and break-even numbers and, second week drop offs and all the other financial expectations. There are people who literally follow box office for the sake of being nerdy about following box office. And it's like, why? Why are we doing that? Well, because you got to know the business. Not really, we don't. Really, we do not. Because at the end of the day, our original concept, one more time for people in the cheap seats, our original concept of paying attention to a movie's box office in the first place was so that we as fans could determine how likely it was we were going to get more of that content, how likely it was we were going to see a sequel. Not to turn it into scoreboard mentality and act like, oh, well, my movie made this much. It's not your movie, number one. It's not your money, number two. Stop stumping for corporations. They don't care about you. They only care about your wallet. Why are you rooting for them? Or against them in that matter, right? Like, you should be rooting against, like, wealth inequality, but, like, and classism and corporatism, you should be against that. But the idea that you're, like, have rooting interest for these studios is utterly asinine. 1000% asinine. I don't care which one of them and how many of them have your favorite characters. Never root for corporations, because corporations do not give a shit about you. They are not your sports teams. They are not your friends. They are not your personal acquaintances. They can do nothing for you other than offer you a piece of art from creatives that they hired that you may or may not enjoy. And we need to get back to talking more about the art, right? We can have discussions about the art form. We can have discussions about cameras. We can have discussions about lighting. We can have discussions about actors and directing and writing and all that stuff. We can talk about all that. I would much rather we have those discussions than anything about box office. That's for damn sure. And as far as speculating, like the future of the DCU or even the MCU, like I've said many times, I want Marvel, or I want the X-Men. I want my Uncanny X-Men, and allegedly that is what we're getting for the next phase, the big next turning chapter of the MCU. You know what? Great. Awesome. I have no idea what Feige and the Marvel Council's plan for that is, but I'm willing to wait and see. I know that there's some things that I would like them to do, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to judge them and be like, well, I don't like what they're doing. No, I'm going to be as open-minded as I possibly can be with respect to what they're doing. But yeah, I wish we could talk more about that than about all the other nonsense that people do shout into the void about. All right, question 3 from John's first email, first of 4. He says, would a 2028 release be okay for Brave and the Bold if that's the release date they decide on? Why not? 2017 Lego Batman movie featuring Justice League, and then Justice League featuring Batman. Okay, so he's giving examples here. 2018 Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, 2019 Spider-Man Far From Home. The Batman 2022, The Flash, which featured 2 Batmen, 2023. Spider-Man Brand New Day 2026, Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse 2027, The Batman Part 2 2027, Batman Brave and the Bold 2028. Yeah, why not? I don't see, I mean, even without those examples, John, so your concern, I guess, is a Batman movie right after a Superman movie. Like, oh, that's too close. No, it isn't. Or whatever they decide to do. Like, and I think maybe Brave and the Bold for production purposes could be a little early for 2028. I'd say maybe closer to 2029 at this point. We just haven't heard any details with respect to it. And right now we're waiting on Supergirl, which is going to get a teaser trailer release this week. That I'll surely be talking about at some point, depending on what day it releases. But, we've got Supergirl, we've got Lanterns, we've got Clayface, we've got Man of Tomorrow coming out in 2027. Like, we have plenty of other things in the DCU to focus on before we get to Brave and the Bold. But 2028, I mean, if they got going, if they got rolling on it, like, as far as principal photography, sometime late 2026 into 2027, or even just all of 2027, yeah, I think absolutely that could happen. And most certainly it could work. I don't see what the big deal with it would be, truthfully, especially if you gain any type of traction with the DCU movie offerings that you're going to be, doling out this upcoming year, whether it's Supergirl or Clayface in that regard. So yeah, no, I see no issues with that release date at all. If that's what they decide to go with, I think it still might be a little quick, but hey, we'll see. All right, question 4. He says, I saw this image making the rounds. And this image is James Gunn. It's AI, first of all. Ugh. But it's James Gunn standing in between Robert Pattinson's Batman and I don't know who this is on the other side of this. But here, let's see if this can if John provides any more context to what it is. He says, I think it can be interpreted in two ways. A, that they must have Pattinson in the DCU. Look at these two go at it. It fits perfectly. Guns. Oh, okay. I know who this is now. This is the actor that plays Clayface. This is the actor that is playing Matt Hagen. I think I'm pretty sure it's Matt Hagen. This is the guy that's playing Matt Hagen in Clayface, which just wrapped shooting about a couple weeks ago, a month ago. So okay, I get it. So the idea is, all right. So that because Clayface is a Batman villain, because the movie takes place in Gotham, this is more for the Reeves, the Pattinson must be the DCU Batman crowd. Okay, so he's saying it can be interpreted either that they must have Pattinson in the DCU, because this is a picture, the AI picture that he sent is James Gunn, in between Robert Pattinson and the Clayface actor, right? With his hands outstretched, like looking at us. So he's saying that it can either be interpreted as they must have Pattinson in the DCU. Look at these two go at it. It fits perfectly. Gunn's a funny ref. Or B, this is Gunn blocking these two from coexisting in the same universe. So he's asking me, how do you interpret this picture? I'm going with the latter. Reeves' epic crime saga seems too realistic to be a part of the DCU. The only way I see Robert P. joining the DCU is if he's a different version of the Cape Crusader. Can I offer a third option? Option C, which is, and this is no disrespect to you, John, whatsoever, but this is AI slop that really doesn't interpret the reality of the situation whatsoever. Because it's not that James Gunn, if Robert Pattinson doesn't end up being the DCU Batman, it will not be because James Gunn is blocking him. It will be because James Gunn already had an idea for who and what the DCU Batman was going to be, and what wanted to stick with his idea, wished to maintain his idea for his universe, for his gods and monsters structure in that regard. And that's where I trust the creative. Because if he has a storyline, if he has a whole idea planned out, then he should use the version of Batman that he wants to use, not the one that fans, demand to use. And one of the things that he wrote, and I'm really glad that Gunn wrote this, and I reposted it. 3 days ago, he posted this thing under the subject of fandom, and he said, quote, if you want to see something from a filmmaker, consider phrasing it as I, as opposed to we, i.e., I want to see Ambush Bug in the DCU versus we want to see Ambush Bug in the DCU. I want to see an on-screen Batman with white eyes versus we want to, etc. Your personal desire is meaningful and has weight, but when you frame your personal desire as a universal one, it rings false and becomes forgettable. Own what you want. And I agreed with that wholeheartedly, and I quoted it, and I said this, plus, when you try to speak for everyone with we, you insult the rest of us that disagree with your opinion. And I see a lot of people that post, we want Pattinson in the DCU. Wrong. Objectively wrong. We do not want Pattinson in the DCU. That is not a collective we whatsoever. So whatever we that person is talking about is not the royal we. It's not the we that is listening to, this show most of the time. I don't know how many of you want Robert Pattinson as the DCU Batman. I don't know that all of you do. I don't know that any of you do, truthfully. But my point is, don't speak for me. Don't speak for everybody else. Never say we. Say you. And I agree. Own it. Take ownership with it. Stop being afraid. Step out on that ladder. A lot of times I feel like the reason people say we and stuff like that is because they're afraid to say I. They're afraid to go out on that limb, and they want the reassurance that other people agree with them. Well, not everybody agrees with you. So you better go ahead and slap an eye on that and just basically be, have some backbone, like grow a pair, if you will, in that regard. So that's what I would say about that. So it's option C, which is it's AI slop and not a real representation of the actual situation, regardless of what happens. And I don't know who created this image. I don't know where it came from, but it is an image that I would never share, like on social media or anything like that, because it is not. It is a false equivalency of what the situation actually is in that regard. So that would be my option. Option C is to dismiss it completely and not even acknowledge it, not even think that it is talking of a specific standpoint, because it is not talking about a standpoint that actually exists, which is Gunn is not refereeing or blocking either one from, from one or the other, Pattinson in the DCU or anything like that. So anyway, there was another thing. He said, update on Tammy's condition. So 2 weeks ago, Tam was on her electric bike and a vehicle wouldn't let her finish going over the crosswalk and drove over it hot green and knocked her off her bike. Oh my God. Is she all right? He says Thanksgiving dinner itself was fine. She wore a sling and we went to my brother's new place. After we got home from dinner, sucked because I accidentally lost my friend's birthday present. He got me a Green Ranger pendant. She's going in for surgery on December 4th and will be in cast for a month. Well, speedy recovery for her. Best wishes and all that. Glad she was not more seriously hurt. And hopefully she recovers and comes back even stronger with respect to her experience and with respect to healing physically in that regard. But thank you for that update. That would have been a while ago, John. So all right, hopefully she's feeling a lot better at this point. Now let's get to your second email, which you sent I think the day after that. This one is titled "Flight Chat Email: The Ballad of Shane and Pamela." Interesting. So he says, I'm using fake names of these two individuals as I have for previous people. Okay. All right. So he's talking about a real life scenario. Gotcha. All right. So he says, me and Shane go back 20 years. We met in a martial arts class. I was 15. He was 17. We both seemed to enjoy talking about video games. We met up again at a college orientation 2 years later, and I invited him to an indie wrestling show. We were friends for 1 year until one fateful day when I went to pick up my bike that I left at his house as he decided that I was too annoying and stupid to be friends with me. I tried to hide tears away, and I also noticed my tire was flat. He denied any involvement with that, and he was mad because I accused him of being a liar. I tried to patch things up throughout the year until I gave up. 2 years later, the mutual friend, Mac, the one that forced me to have him stay with me for months, and Shane were attempting to both pursue a relationship with the same woman. When the woman rejected Shane and chose Mac, Shane and I reconciled. We had our ups and downs throughout the years. Around 2015, he met Pamela. She proposed to him after weeks of dating, and then they got married in 2017. I even got to be the best man. All right. He says a year later, the three of us is embarked on a road trip from California to Oregon to Idaho to see if living in either of these two states would be viable as they were more affordable than California. At our last stop in Idaho, we stayed at his brother and sister-in-law's house. They showed us around. We had a fun time. It seemed like a cool place to live, he said. Pamela didn't come with us because she didn't feel well. Shane's brother, Jake, and his wife, Carly, were very kind hosts, but Pamela was very controlling and argued with Shane a lot. She even decided to leave mid-trip because he was late to make a phone call. It was there that Jake and Carly tried to talk to Shane about reconsidering his relationship, as she had proposed to him after just a month of dating. He listened to reason, and him and I went back home through Nevada, and it seemed he was understanding of his situation. But then they patched things up with her. For one reason or another, he just kind of ruminated in accepting his stature, he says. He always worked, and he always works, and she barely works. She worked at Macy's until the pandemic. Shane had considered their offer to stay with him, but Pamela just seemed to refuse to be over and never did it. Or refuse the offer, I guess. And now, over the years, he's continued to get himself critical debt, despite working and begging people for money. I chose to just keep my distance from them. He brags about how he has the best life with her, but he really doesn't. They had a trial separation for a brief moment. I'm trying to wash my hands clean of the guy. He's told people in my circles he's hurt that I ghosted him, but honestly, I couldn't take more of his crap. If you were in my shoes, would you have put a stop to this a long time ago? A stop to what? His behavior or tolerating it? Because you can't stop a person's behavior. You can only control how much you are exposed to it. And yeah, I would have put a stop to that a long time ago. I have friends that devout friends and fraternity brothers from 20 years ago, truthfully, like 20 years ago in that regard. And over time, through one reason or another, through several personal circumstances, I distanced myself from those people. And do I think some of them may or may not have been hurt by that? Perhaps. But I had to do what's best for me and my psyche, my mentality as an individual. So that meant eliminating anybody that, was going to be perceived or going to be evolving into something potentially, toxic or, not beneficial for me in that regard, and listen, they can make all the mistakes and all the decisions that they want in that regard. I remember some years ago, there was a group of friends of mine that, they were all in the married clique, if you will, because all of them had wives, all of them were married, and we're all in like our mid to late 20s at this point, right? At that point, they were all married. A number of them had children and all that, right? And they were the ones out of anybody in my age group that most constantly asked me the when am I going to settle down, when am I going to get married type deal, right? Because there's just this weird thing, and not everybody does it, but there's this weird thing in people's 20s where like they get into these marriage cults where it's just couples spending all this time together, and if you're not married then you're not part of the group and they don't really treat you the same way, which is how I felt. And I bring this up now because I distanced myself from that group, even though I did enjoy quite a few of them. I'm not saying all of them necessarily behaved that way, but it was still a group that I'm like, okay, I don't know how conducive this is for me. And fast forward to now, Shonda and I are still together, and a number of those people, not all of them, but more than a few, have gotten divorced and remarried. At least one or two of them remarried, but a number of them have gotten divorced. So it's like, oh, well, so much for the sanctity of what you wanted me to join so many years ago. I'm glad that I, listened to myself and am going to, make the decision myself for what it is I'm going to do with respect to that, between me and Shonda in that regard. So, yeah. Yeah, to me, I just you gotta protect your peace more than ever nowadays. You gotta protect your peace, and you've got to find a nice non toxic situation. Yeah, and if it means letting go of longtime friends, if it means letting go of people that you've known since you were a kid, so be it. You'll know, like it's a gut feeling, it's an intuition. You'll know whether or not this is something that you think is going to be detrimental, instead of you overthinking it or whatnot. You know that whether this is going to be beneficial for you or not, and you just have to, judge it accordingly, right? That's what I would say, truthfully, to be honest with you. That was definitely a bit of a deeper question in that regard. So that was your that was your second email. Now, how about your third email? This title is interesting. The randomness of weaponizing Zootopia 2's box office against Superman. Oh Lord. Okay. Let's see where this goes. He says on Threads, I started seeing posts about how Zootopia 2 outgrows Superman worldwide in 6 days. By that logic, it also beat in 5 to 6 days Captain America Brave New World, Thunderbolts, a Fantastic Four First Steps, Tron Ares, Elio, and Moana 2. And we'll probably put Gross Lilo and Stitch next week. Gross? So you're not a fan of Lilo and Stitch. Okay. I haven't watched it. I can't tell you if I'm a fan of it or not. But either way, different conversation. He says 7 Disney movies it's beaten, but for some reason fans want to point to a DC film. What purpose does it have other than attention whoring? It doesn't. I made a declaration that anyone that remotely decides to use box office as a weapon against another movie, especially DC Studios, gets an instant block. No ifs, ands, or buts. They're all whores that do this. Attention whores. I sent myself a reminder to commit to this, so I said my piece. Have you seen any of this garbage? No, I haven't. I have not seen that. And that just tells me that my social media interaction, one, has declined, and two, I'm not feeding the algorithm nearly as much as I did in the past, right? Because I haven't seen any. People keep commenting on how there are people saying that now that Netflix is buying Warner Brothers, oh, the Snyderverse is coming back, and how ridiculous that is. And I agree that is ridiculous because there's no way that the Snyderverse is coming back based on the Netflix purchase. But I haven't seen anybody say it on Threads, like at all. I've just seen people complaining about other people saying it. And I'm like, okay, if you don't want to see other people saying it, then stop posting about it. Don't post Snyderverse anywhere in any of your posts, or your hashtags, or your themes or whatever. No, leave that subject matter alone, and the algorithm won't keep throwing dipshit trolls and nonsense at you. Because that's what really the majority of it is now. Even some of the more vocal minority elements of the actual, release the Snyder Cut movement, even they've moved on, truthfully. And we're talking about a newer audience for Warner Brothers in this respect. So, trying to connect it back to yesteryear like that. I mean, yes, there is some, like there's attention whoring, that's lucrative for people that, complain about that on a regular basis. But you know what? That's their business. That's what they want to do. And, they'll have all the sheeples basically, coming up to them, and basically, flaunting it around them and whatnot. But no, it's, I have not seen it, and it is a stupid argument. It makes absolutely zero sense. And yeah, glad that I have not seen it. Maybe I will take some extra care on my algorithm to make certain that I don't see it, although I feel like perhaps my algorithm does know me a bit better now than it did necessarily before. All right, so then there's this email. Oh my god, you know what? John actually has 5 emails. Because first there was the James Gunn online responses, then there was about Shane and Pamela, then there was the randomness of weaponizing Zootopia 2 that we just read, and now this next one called Final Flight Chat Email, hopefully. Hopefully, he says. Spoiler alert, it's not, but that's because of what he sent about in the final email. But for this one, he says, "Well, I finally 100%ed Super Mario Galaxy and played as little Luigi thus far. Good preparation for the movie coming out. Congratulations. I still have not gotten all 120 stars in that game." He says, "B, as of writing this, I am currently waiting in the parking lot for Tammy's surgery. Thankfully, her insurance covered it." Yep, this was on that Friday the 4th. Hopefully, it went off without a hitch and was a success. Speedy recovery, of course, for Tammy. C, he says, trip plans. December 30th through January 1st, we'll be driving up to Reno to celebrate New Year's and hopefully see some snow. January 18th through 23rd, I'll be going to Hawaii to visit an acquaintance and help paint his house as a work exchange. Maybe even do some DoorDash. Imagine me doing deliveries on an island. Late March during Tammy's spring break, going to visit New York. Haven't been there since December 2018, so it'll be interesting to see how things have been since I last went there, he says. Late June, going to celebrate Tammy's birthday by taking her down to LA to see her cousin and visit Universal Nintendo World. Oh, sounds like a good-ass trip. Late July, early August. Gonna go back to Hawaii for 2 days, and we're going to flight to Japan from there. I figured we could use our rapid rewards to fly to Hawaii first to save flight money and spend about 6 or 7 days there, and then we'll fly back to Hawaii and stay another 2 days, and then go home. All right, well planned already. He says Veterans Day weekend, November, we're going to take a trip to Idaho for the first time. I've gone up there since 2018. Okay, so clearly your job gives every holiday off. Mine doesn't, and there's complicated reasons for that I don't need to get into on this show, but either way. He says, I'll be trying to make money working different side jobs as well as my regular hours to make these trips work. It won't be easy, but with Tammy and being out late being in our late 30s, there we go. We might not get an opportunity like this for a long time. Although I hope to go to Seattle, Washington, he says, and parts of Alaska in 2027. It sounds like you've got your itinerary all set there, John. Best of luck to you and all your travels. And then the final thing he sent for this email is, feel free to let us know any updates on starting a Discord. Yeah, I will. Stay tuned. Definitely stay tuned for that, especially after we get past Christmas, no doubt. All right, so he said that was going to be his last email, hopefully, but it wasn't, because he sent that on Thursday, December 4th at like 2:46 p.m. The following Friday is when all the big news happened, and that is what John R. sent his last email about. Flight Chat breaking news: Netflix buys Warner Brothers. He says, I am split on this decision. All I can say is they need to let Warner Brothers Pictures be a movie studio. In terms of long-term health, and I want to preface that he capitalized movie studio when he said that. He says, in terms of long-term health of streaming, this is good. In terms of theatrical, the writing's on the wall. We will probably see only major blockbusters take priority, while original titles will likely receive small budgets and limited theatrical windows. So Netflix will allow DC Studios, Rowling Wizards, Hanna-Barbera, Looney Tunes, Minecraft, Mattel, and other big tentpole IPs to be the big theatrical show, he says. There's always a chance an original film becomes a runaway hit, like K-pop Demon Hunters, but no doubt this will change philosophies going forward. I wish this merger luck. Obviously, the big question mark is, what is this means for HBO Max? There are a few options, he says. 1, merge it into one service, Netflix HBO. 2, make it its own production company, HBO Films. 3, sell it off, unlikely since Warner Brothers is synonymous with HBO. 4, split assets with Netflix being the majority stakeholder of the brand, similar to what Disney does with Hulu, although I believe Disney pretty much owns Hulu at this point. Or Netflix can be the more family-friendly service, while HBO or HBO Max is for the adults services, which is what HBO was to begin with. Also, as of this writing, I know the deal isn't finalized yet, but we'll see what happens. Interesting, ain't it? It's not finalized, but I mean, Netflix, they're certainly acting. Sarandos, they're acting like it's a done deal, like it's moving forward, like it's happening, despite the 12 to 18 months of regulatory scrutiny and approval that it's going to need to get off the ground, right? Like this is going to be an ongoing thing, with respect to the deal eventually coming to fruition, like legally and officially at some point. But I would say that as far as HBO Max, it's probably going to be either 1 or 2, in my opinion. And I don't know if they'll merge it into one Netflix service and call it, I can't even think of a clever name to call it, truthfully, if you're going to give it something completely different. But, instead of just saying Netflix Max or HBO Flix or whatever, like I could see a scenario where that occurs and they merge both libraries into one app, or I could see a scenario where HBO Max it's the Hulu plan, like you said, and basically Max would be Netflix's version of Hulu, just like Hulu is the same way that Hulu is to Disney in that regard. I could absolutely see that if they wanted to keep the libraries separate, like you said, like adult content, like because Aliens, Predator, all the more adult, the Touchstone stuff or whatever, that's on Hulu. The Fox stuff is on Hulu. Yeah, and yes, they have changed parental controls and they've added it so that you can get that kind of Hulu stuff on Disney Plus, but for the longest time you couldn't originally, right? I could totally see them doing something similar in that regard to, Warner Brothers being folded in here. No, they're not going to sell it off, and no, they're splitting assets. Like I could see that. I guess for me, it would either be one or four that I think would happen. I think as far as it being its own production company, isn't it already? Don't they already have one? I don't know. But either way, yeah, either one or four I think are your best options. And probably number one, if I had to venture and guess, would probably be the best option that they'll likely go with, in my humble opinion. But we've got 12 to 18 months to find out all this, see what all the regulatory hoopla is about, indeed. But that'll do it for John's emails this particular week. Thank you so much, sir, for your feedback. Greatly appreciate it. No, you did not break any records as far as content sending in is concerned, but hey, better luck next time, right? All right, next up, welcome back to our resident Superman superfan, Waliyu Mustafa. It's been a minute since he's sent an email in. We sent these pair a couple of days ago. The first one titled, It's Been a Minute. He says, Hey, Ray, been a minute. How are you and Shonda doing? We're doing all right, moving forward, man. Just, trying to live the dream, if you will, in the real world, for sure. But he says, I won't be writing a long email, but I will say that I've come out of the end of a very bad illness. Apparently, it was the super flu. Nasty, very nasty. I was practically dead. Dead, I tell you. Doctors put me on antibiotics, and it is doing the job. Well, all right, that explains it. Glad you're feeling better. I'm sorry that happened, because that really sounds like it sucks. It's awful. I feel like getting sick has never been great, but getting sick now is, like, scary. Like, a lot scarier than it used to be, thanks to 2020 and how that affected all of us psychologically in that regard. But glad you're doing all right. Hope the antibiotics are doing the trick for you, for sure, good sir. He says, quick thing to mention is that last month we celebrated Estelle's first birthday. Can you believe it? A year old already. I have attached a couple of pics and also pics of their Christmas photo shoot they did together, she and Micah. These kids can be annoying at times, but look how cute they are. No, I cannot believe that Estelle is already a year old. Oh my goodness. Yep, these are, you have adorable children. You have incredibly adorable children, Wally. And yeah, I cannot believe that your daughter is already a year old. That is crazy. My goodness. But hey, happy birthday, belated to Estelle. And man, it is just crazy how time flies. Seriously, it really is. It is insane how time flies, especially as you get older, right? Because it's like, well, no, it's not. It's the same length of time, same seconds, minutes, hours, days, years, like, but still, just before you know it, it's been however many years. It's like, what? That just happened, didn't it? No, it didn't. It happened back then. Oh, okay, all right then. Yeah, but no, awesome. Thank you for sharing that, man. Greatly appreciate that. He says, anyway, down to business. I see Netflix is poised to own Warner Brothers Discovery. Oh dear. Oh, I should mention he sent this on Friday, so this is like in the throes of this. Yep. He said, never thought we would see the day. All those years we said they would never be in a position to buy Warner Brothers, and here we are. What is going on? Guess we wait and see how this all unfolds. Yep, and here, I tell you what, this is a perfect opportunity for me to harken back to what I was just saying earlier to John about receipts, because I did say that. I absolutely said that multiple times. Netflix can't buy Warner Brothers. This is what we told all of the bots and the cultists who were like, sell Snyderverse to Netflix, sell Warner Brothers to Netflix. No, they can't afford it. They can't afford the studio. We were wrong. They can afford it. They are affording it, and it's happening. So we reserve the right as human beings to change our minds and go, well, shit, we got that one wrong. Did not think that Netflix was going to be making play for this. But my goodness, they most certainly have done it, and they are, threatening to upheave and change the entirety of the industry. But yeah, Guess we will wait and see exactly how all of this unfolds. Like I said, 12 to 18 months of regulatory scrutiny. And then there's that $5.8 billion, buyout. If somehow the deal goes down, I personally, I think with all the lack of, with all the deregulation and all the lack of antitrust enforcement in this country, I think this deal is going to go through. I do. I really think so. But, we'll see. We've got 12 to 18 months to see exactly how it all unfolds. Wally says, I haven't seen any new movies at the cinema that includes The Running Man, Predator Badlands, Wicked for Good, and Now You See Me, Now You Don't. I will watch them on streaming at some point. Illness, it sucks. Yeah, that's. I'm sorry, man, because out of everything that you listed, I saw Running Man and I saw Predator Badlands, and I thought they were both very good. If I had to pick one over the other, I'd probably pick Predator Badlands. I'm calling that the better movie than The Running Man, but I did really like The Running Man. I really thought that was a strong adaptation, a strong film. I did a flight review on it, which is pretty spoiler free. That one was one of my more spoiler free reviews for flight review, which quite honestly I might go back to doing. Truthfully, I might go back to doing spoiler free reviews so that people don't have to worry about getting spoiled on important details for a film that they still haven't seen yet for a variety of reasons, including illness. He says, speaking of cinemas, I heard you guys say that you aren't allowed to take food into the theaters, as in you cannot sneak any in? That's unfair, lol. Over here, we take food in because of how expensive cinema food is. Just take a bag in and you're sorted. They don't bother checking. There might be the odd time I buy a drink, mainly for Charlie when we go together, but if I go on my own, I either eat beforehand or I buy something else and take it in with me. Really? Seriously. I've seen people get their Buffalo Wild Wings and Little Caesars, like pizza rolls and whatnot, taken away from them in line before they got into the theater, like as they were waiting. Seriously? Okay, so is this another American thing? Is this another capitalistic thing where like the movie theaters are so overly protective of, hey, you must pay $15 for our nachos and our popcorn and our pop. We will not allow you to bring anybody else's stuff into the theater unless you bought it from us. Is that really another Americanized thing? Wow. You're right. That's not fair. And that's unfortunate, but that's the climate that we live in. Great. One more thing to chalk up to, American capitalism that is, not the case in other countries. Wonderful. Awesome. Just great. Anyway, he goes on to say that we watched Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, and that movie is nothing short of awesome. Loved it. The story, the visuals, the acting, everything was brilliant with it. Hope it gets some award recognition in the coming months. Yeah, and that's the other bittersweet part of the Netflix deal is, for all of the schlock and for all of the subjectively not great stuff that they have on the service, they do have things like Frankenstein or the Knives Out films, right? Like they do have other things that subjectively speaking we do enjoy, right? So it's a catch-22 in that regard, right? We're not saying that Netflix is all bad, but their mindset of reducing theatrical, to nothing and probably not even embracing physical media as well, that's bad. That's no good. That doesn't help any of us. He says, update on TV shows. We've watched the first volume of the final season of Stranger Things, and I'm eagerly awaiting the rest of the episodes. Top stuff. We've also started a show on Apple TV called Pluribus. Oh, yes. It's about a woman who is like one of the most miserable people in the world, having to come to terms with the fact that the world has been overtaken by some kind of happiness virus. It's rather comical at times. It's created by Vince Gilligan of Breaking Bad fame. That's all I will say on that. Yep, heard people talking about Pluribus, and yep, I knew about Vince Gilligan and all that. It's on the list. You know how that goes. He said, I've also learned that season 2 of Monarch Legacy of Monsters is back in February on Apple TV. Cannot wait. Shonda just said this. Shonda literally just mentioned, she asked me if I'd seen any of it, and I have not. I've not seen any of the first season. I should, though. Listen, just so long as Godzilla moves the way that he does in Godzilla and Godzilla King of the Monsters, and not the way that he does in Godzilla vs. Kong or Godzilla X Kong, I think he moves too fast. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I like the way that the slow, demonstrative Godzilla from the first two movies, the Gareth Edwards film, and did he direct the second one? I forget. But just the first two of the Monster vs. Godzilla movies, the way he moves in those movies, I like that. Not the fast, speedy track star Godzilla. So if he moves the slower, more deliberate way in Legacy of Monsters, then cool. Awesome. I would like to see that and check that out because I do like those movies, I'm totally going deeper into the lore of Godzilla because obviously I have -1. I'm really looking forward to -0 when that comes out next year. And also, I got another. They recently released Shin Godzilla in Steelbook that I have not seen before, and I really want to watch that. So I'll be checking that off the list, hopefully in the not too distant future as well. He says, I have watched the latest selection of Star Wars Vision episodes, all really good, but the last episode was really trippy and would only work if you were high on acid or LSD. LOL. Thank you for reminding me that another season of Visions came out. Just add that to the list. There's too much shit to watch. Okay. He says, anyway, I'm making sure I'm keeping my social media negative free of trolls. I say that because of your recent episodes about the Snyder and anti-Snyder cults and just fandom in general. People are just too miserable in their cells, and instead of addressing that, they prefer to pile that on to everyone else. No, thank you. 1000% agreement with you on that one, sir. He says, that's going to do it for me. Hope you and Shonda enjoy the weekend and do your best to stay warm. We've had some cold snaps here in the last month, and it's been horrible. Take care and speak soon. Thank you, Wally Mustafa. Yeah, no, it's been bitterly cold here, Wally. It has. I mean, it's been unseasonably cold, which is crazy in Michigan. If it's been this cold, like in the 20s and teens in November, going into December, then I really fear what January and February are going to be like for us, because those are the two coldest months for sure that we get here in Michigan. So we're just going to try and hang in there as well, good sir. But here, you sent a second email that said one more thing. He says, just remembered I wanted to say thanks for letting me know about the new Superman steelbooks. I got confused when I saw it on the Steelbook Discord and I thought it had sold out, but it turns out it wasn't ready for pre-order. Silly me. So when I got your message on Instagram, I hightailed it to the Zavvi and HMV websites to order them both. Guess I just needed to be patient, lol. I noticed Manta Lab is doing their special editions of Superman, but those will be way out of my price range. I think I'm good with what I have. Oh, and speaking of Super, he says, the costume for Supergirl has been revealed at CCXP. They changed the belt to look similar to what is in the Woman of Tomorrow graphic novel, and the first trailer is due to be released at some point over the weekend. I will look forward to that. Okay, that's it. See you. Thank you, Wally Mustafa. Well, not this weekend, but this week. James Gunn posted today. Says we've got a new teaser trailer coming for Supergirl this week. They've already released a brief intro, like a 5-10 second snippet. That, all right, fair enough. Waiting for that trailer. With respect to the Steelbook thing, hey, no problem, man. Because I have the Steelbook Discord, and then also I'm on the Steelbook Reddit. Like I get information, like, because guys will update that like across the world, like as soon as an inventory is restocked or as soon as something comes live, like to be able to pre-order. And that was one where I was like, yep, this one's gonna go quickly. And I don't think the Zavvi one is sold out yet. I am not sure. And not that I need the Zavvi one, but I think I did pre-order it only because I have kind of gotten into this thing a little bit of like having multiple versions of particular films, depending on the film, really, and depending on the version. Like you mentioned, Manta Lab. Like I have collector's editions of movies, and I have regular editions, and I have the collector's editions on a different shelf because they're thicker, and I have the regular edition steelbooks, like on their shelf because they're thinner. And so having a representation of one movie in both forms is totally happening now. Or if they do like even bigger special edition stuff, like the John Wick stash book, where you get the first three movies in individualized steelbooks, but they come in a Russian Bible that has like a picture of him and the picture of him and his wife and other things in it, based on his Russian heritage, if you will. So yeah, the Zavvi Steelbook has not sold out yet. It is still available for pre-order and should be shipping probably within the next week or so, more than likely. But yeah, I'm glad that you were able to get a hold of it. I know that you didn't want to miss out on it because of what happened, how quickly the other one went out. I mean, it was very hectic. And now, unfortunately, because of the Netflix situation, it could be even more hectic to get that kind of physical media from Warner Brothers in particular. So yeah, got to get while the getting's good. And I have thought about Manta Lab. I've thought about it. Not just because of the direct sales that usually like get sold out within like 5-10 minutes, but also there's more than a few resellers on eBay and on the Shop app that there's a markup. It's not a terrible markup, but still, if I really want, like I thought about getting one for Sinners because they came out with a Manta Lab release for Sinners, And I know there's a ton of other Manta Lab releases, and there's more than a few that I would be interested in. But the Sinners one, I was like, thought about it, and it's crazy, because you can get like it's four sets really, and there's like a regular, and there's like a full slip and lenticulars, and then there's the one click box where you can get everything, and that's like $400, and it's like, wow, I don't need four copies of the same movie unless they're all uniquely different versions. And really, the difference is the artwork. So what I've done is sometimes for stuff like that is like, okay, which artwork do I want? The full slip A, the full slip B, or this other version? And then I will pick whichever artwork I want, and that'll be the version that I hunt for, if you will, or am trying to get in that regard. So yeah, I'm with you on that. I hear you. Glad that you were able to pick up that Superman Steelbook for sure. I feel you on the Manta Lab stuff. It would really have to be like a real special edition for me to even think about that. And I imagine other special editions, hopefully, will release. I mean, who knows? We'll see what happens with respect to Warner Brothers and physical media going forward. But thank you as always for the feedback, Wally. Glad you're feeling better. Looking forward to your next emails, next communiques, next conversations with respect to movies, TV, and other assorted media goods, sir. And hope that you and the family and all that are doing great as well. All right, next up is Alex De Silva. His email is titled Flight Chat 28 World Cup and Rage Bait and Scalping. Oh my. Nice Wizard of Oz. Maybe he's going to talk about Wicked for a little bit, but he's definitely leading off with soccer. So buckle up, soccer fans. Here we go. He says, "Hey, Ray, the Team USA World Cup drama continues. One of America's most notable players, if not the most famous and skilled player, is Christian Pulisic. I hope I pronounced that right. He didn't play for the national team this past summer in the Gold Cup, and he claimed it was because he had just played a really grueling season with AC Milan over in Italy, and because of a minor hip injury he suffered. Because of this, he wanted to take the summer to rest and prepare for the World Cup this June. In a recent interview, the Team USA coach, Mauricio Pochettino, said that the ultimate goal is to win the World Cup this summer. Recently, two former Team USA players, Alexi Lalas and Landon Donovan, made comments criticizing Pulisic's decision to sit the summer out. They were saying things along the lines of, well, you don't see guys like Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo sitting out tournaments before a World Cup. After all this, I can't wait to see how Pulisic, who's been named Captain America by the fan base, will respond on the field this upcoming summer." And then he says the drawing for the initial group stage happened earlier today, which, when did he send this? He sent this 2 days ago, so this was on Friday the 5th. He says the group stage works similarly. At first he says now he's even more hyped after that drawing for the initial group stage. He says it works similarly to the NBA Cup group stage, if you're familiar with that, kind of. USA is in Group D with Paraguay, Australia, and the winner of a playoff game in March. Could either be Turkey, Romania, Slovakia, or Kosovo. So in other words, Team USA drew an extremely lucky group, and right now they're the favorite to win Group D and move on to the round of 16. Team USA is rated 14th in the world, and all the other teams in our group are rated in the mid-20s and up. USA has the chance to make a big statement this June, with the first kickoff game scheduled for June 12th. After the draw, he says the very same Alexi Lalas interviewed Coach Pochettino and said it would be a massive disappointment if USA doesn't advance past the group stage. But Pochettino offered a very humble response, basically saying that they're going to respect every opponent they come across and not consider any games won until they're played. That's the smart way to go about it, because from what you're saying, Alex, it sounds like the group that they're in is full of all the inexperienced teams, so it's an opportunity for them to actually flex their muscles playing teams that are not as good or not as experienced as they are. And I totally get that. I've also seen that backfire. Not necessarily in soccer, but certainly in football and hockey and baseball, or really all the other sports. Like, if you do not take your opponent seriously, if you dismiss them right off the bat, they can bite you in the ass, and it will hurt. It will truly hurt if you do not prepare for them properly. So I think Coach right there, and his words absolutely that's the right approach to say respect every opponent you come across and not consider a single game won until they're played. That is absolutely 100% the right approach to take. He says, meanwhile, my other rooting interest, Brazil, is in Group C with Morocco, Scotland, and Haiti. Morocco's a strong team and is going to be the toughest opponent for us. Scotland should be manageable, and Haiti, poor Haiti, he says. They haven't qualified for the World Cup since like the 80s, and now that they finally made it back, they're going to get absolutely wrecked in the group stage. But hey, That's the fun of the random drawing. Well, I'm sure Haitian fans aren't having much fun with the thought of their opponents, but I'm having a blast today, he says. I know you're not a soccer head, but this World Cup might be a great time to jump in and give it a try. The new extended format has made it so that there are more teams than ever before participating, and there's nothing quite like World Cup drama. Perhaps, perhaps so. I gotta find time because in many cases, saying that there's too much shit to watch doesn't just apply to movies and television shows that are scripted, but also live sporting events, of whichever sport it is, because I follow damn near all of them. Like, yeah, it's tough to find time to watch any of this shit. And then when am I ever going to find time to play video games again? And I would love to do that. I would love to play video games again. But when am I ever going to find time to do any of this shit? Ah, it's a lot. But thank you for the recommendation. I will definitely keep that in mind. And he says, now a quick question about that other sport also called football. He asks, would you prefer it if each NFL team had local announcers, as is the case for the three other major American sports, or do you prefer how there are national announcers for every game in the season? Local. I would prefer local. And part of the reason that I prefer local, Alex, is because we have a local option that is really awesome on baseball right now. In baseball, for the Detroit Tigers, we, for a long time, after Ernie Harwell passed away, he was a longtime voice of the Tigers on the radio and also on a bit of TV. Mario Impemba and Rod Allen took over during the Jim Leyland era, and they had really good chemistry and they were really awesome and, did all of the local Tigers broadcasts, and then they had a falling out that may have turned physical. They got fired. This was a couple years ago, and they replaced him for a little bit with Matt Shepard, who's a nice guy, but wasn't really great at play-by-play. And so then what happened was we went and got the guy that had been calling Chicago White Sox games for the last number of years, Jason Benetti, and he's awesome. He's really, really good. I love his energy. I love his calls. I love his knowledge. He's really good. And the thing about Benetti is he calls baseball and he calls football as well. I know he goes the gamut because he calls national games for Fox. And I think also he's called games for ESPN as well. Like, he's a national broadcaster in addition to local. But he's somebody that, I hear local on Tigers games all the time. And it's like, yeah, that'd be awesome. And I just think that really this is true for all sports, but certainly for the NFL, local announcers understand the teams and know like the ins and outs and all the stuff that all the local fans are going to know that the national fans aren't going to know. And yeah, I think that would be better, truthfully. I don't think it should be, just because it really is the only league, I guess, and maybe it's just because it's weekly, like all the games, but it's the only league where you got a bunch of national people that aren't connected to the area calling your team's game. And it's like, where's all the extra added, nuggets of knowledge, and where's all this, and what'd you hear about that, and whatever, and who are you talking to in the field, and all that. All that's gone when it's just, kind of sterilized national, media the entire time. So yeah, I would pick local. I would absolutely say local. Because really, there aren't that many great, national announcers anymore. There's like a handful. I like Bob Wischusen, who does NHL games. He's like maybe the last really awesome NHL, commentator, and he does football as well. I've heard him do college football games too. But with respect to all the other sports, I mean, I like Nance and Romo. I do. I do like Jim Nance and Tony Romo. I do. Tony Romo does not annoy me. I like his insight. Whatever. I'm on an island with that. I don't care. It's all subjective. But other than that, there aren't really any classic A teams. There's nobody out there like a Keith Jackson or Brent Musburger, who did NCAA football for years, or even a Pat Summerall and a John Madden, even that. And Al Michaels, he's a classic announcer, but, they got him with Herb Street on Thursday Night Football, which I guess is better than him being paired with flippin' Chris Collinsworth. But Mike Tirico, who's also really good, he's paired with Chris Collinsworth. In fact, they're doing Sunday Night Football right now as we speak, and it's like, I like Tirico, but can they get him a better play-by-play guy? I don't know. But yeah, long story short, too late. I would take local. I would definitely take local for football as opposed to national, for sure. He says, recently my Bruins beat your Red Wings in a shootout in which your team failed to score even once. But then to balance the scales, you guys went and beat us by 1 goal in the very next game. 1-goal losses are always frustrating, and man, that na-na-na celebration the Wings do after every goal they score is so obnoxious and annoying. and I had to be subjected to it 5 flipping times in that one game. Okay, hang on. If you're talking about what you're hearing over the loudspeaker, you should know, if you don't already, what that is. It's the Wings goal horn has "Without Me" from Eminem in it, and that's that part of, na 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 na. That's what that is, and because Eminem is one of ours, right? He's from Detroit. He's Detroit local. He's Detroit proud, and so that's a local thing. I get that it sounds like it's taunting, which, whatever, that's fine. We're original six rivals. You can think of whatever you want of it. I couldn't care less because it's supposed to annoy you. You're not supposed to like when you lose to us, just like I hate when we lose to you. But I don't think it's necessarily like, I mean, maybe somebody thought of it like, oh, here we go with the na taunting. No, I think it's more of the Eminem. Like, at least that's how I've taken it. Up until you bringing up the taunting thing, that it sounds like taunting, I never thought of it as taunting. I only thought of it as the Eminem reference and Eminem connection. Like, oh, all right, we got Eminem in our goal horn. Yeah, that makes sense. Why the hell not? Why not have that play? Now that we finally have, it took them a number of years before they actually got an authentic goal horn for Little Caesars Arena that wasn't just a recording of the old horn from Joe Louis Arena. So, yeah, either way, we did split the home and home. We're in such a weird place right now, the Wings are, because the young guys have come up, and I like a good amount of them. I like Emmett Finney. I like Axel Sandin Pellica on the blue line. And there's a youth movement that is definitely finally making some noise, like on the actual NHL ice. We just have a goaltending problem. We really do. We have a really nasty goaltending problem. Old Cam Talbot and old John Gibson are just not gonna cut it. And I'm sitting here, I'm kind of on the train with a lot of other Wings fans. They're like, okay, where's Kosa? Sebastian Kosa. He's supposed to be a big young goalie prospect. He's still down in the minors. When is he going to come up? When is he going to get a shot? Uh, Personally, I would say sooner than later, please, because I feel like there are times where this team, like there was a game a couple weeks ago, they mercilessly outshot New Jersey 35-19 and lost like 4-3. And did not get any breaks or bounces their way, and it was just like, come on, guys, you can't get any help from your backstop. I realize that there are defensive breakdowns, and sometimes the goalies can, a good shot's a good shot, and deflections are deflections. I understand that, but by the same token, come on, can we get somebody in here? Can we finally get a starting goaltender that is not aged and like a 2-year rental? Can we, or a reclamation project like Alex Nedeljkovic was, or like any of the prior goalies that we've had up to this point? I don't know. I mean, we got to figure that out. We really do. Really got to figure that out, because we're into year 7 of the Iser plan, and I still couldn't tell you if we're going to make the playoffs this year or not. We have failed to do so in this entire era. So I don't know. Really, really uncertain with respect to our hockey future, but there's some bright spots. Hopefully, there's some bright spots. All right, Alex says, let's discuss the morality or lack thereof of scalping. I agree that it's overall pretty crappy when people buy up a bunch of an item or ticket just to resell it at a vastly marked up rates. I remember this being an issue when the PS5 was first released, because the whole scalping thing made it tougher for regular customers to get themselves a console. However, for events that are already crazily expensive, how much additional harm is scalping causing? Some would argue that scalping is perfectly within the bounds of the free market system, but things do get murkier when considered through a more ethical lens. Okay, I get the angle that for an event, especially a sporting event, the ticket is already expensive enough. How much worse could scalping be? But honestly, like, any worse is worse, right? Like, even if it's $10, it's like, no, that's bullshit. Like, why are you doing this? And it bugs me, because it does price out a lot of people that go to games in the first place. People that are priced out in the first place, and then they can't even go to the secondary market for any type of like markdown, because all anybody wants is at least to recoup their costs and maybe make a little bit of profit on their ticket. And it's like, well, damn. Anybody that really wants to see this game isn't necessarily going to get to see it because they can't afford it in the first place. They certainly can't afford a scalper in that regard. And yeah, I get the people that argue that it's within the bounds of the free market system, but no, but you could. The problem is that it's always an ethical issue, because when you buy from the free market system and then resell yourself, like, you're pricing people out of the ability to buy it at not your markup price. Like, why is that fair? It's not. It is ethically murky in that regard, and that's why I am 100% against it in that regard. I don't like it whatsoever, and I also don't like it for tickets, truthfully, because it's like, yeah, and just recently, the Michigan Ohio State game, which was utterly dreadful a week or so ago. I'm at this point. I'll just go ahead and bring this up because college football playoffs is like a hot button topic now because all the Notre Dame fans are pissed off, and now Notre Dame's not even going to accept a bowl invitation because they're smart, and they're snarky about the fact that they didn't. They're salty rather about the fact that they didn't get into the college football playoff, and a couple of other like Tulane and JMU did, or I think, if I'm not mistaken, and people are like, well, their strength of schedule is ridiculous. How could you possibly vault them ahead of Notre Dame? Well, Notre Dame doesn't belong to a conference. Notre Dame is an independent. If Notre Dame was in the Big Ten right now, they would be in the college football playoff and they would have nothing to complain about, right? Like, I don't have any sympathy for them with respect to that in that regard. But I bring this up because a couple of weeks ago, or a week ago, right? It was Michigan Ohio State, right? And we thoroughly got outclassed in that game because we're a very young team, and Ohio State is far more experienced in the transactional process of getting players, paying for players, and whatnot. And we are just freshly. We still don't know for certain if that's something that we want to get into, and we really should. But there comes this age-old debate about like the non-conference schedule and should we play quality opponents in the non-conference or not. And I've always said that we shouldn't because that you know doesn't help us in the long term, because I see Alabama play Chattanooga and Little Sisters of the Poor and the Citadel the week before they play Auburn in the Iron Bowl, and they've gotten into the playoffs like multiple times, including this year. In that regard, it really is no benefit to playing a tougher opponent like an Oklahoma, like we did earlier this year, or like Texas, like we did last year. Like, there's no benefit to that in the non-conference schedule whatsoever. But the fans, the season ticket holders, are all up in arms because they want to see good matchups when they buy season tickets. Well, I have absolutely no sympathy for a season ticket holder anymore in Ann Arbor because there was way too much red and white. Now that I'm landing this plane, there was way too much red and white of the Michigan-Ohio State game in Ann Arbor last week. You know what that was, Alex? That was season ticket holders selling their tickets. There's probably students as well selling their tickets because they figured it was a foregone conclusion that we were going to lose that game. And that's bullshit. So you know what? Have the Citadel and have Little Sisters of the Poor and have Western Michigan 3 times a year in the non-conference. I don't care, because we don't need to be scheduling stronger non-conference games, especially if y'all are going to sell your tickets in years that you get disillusioned and think that we're going to get our asses handed to us. And you allow them. Like, it's one thing if state fans come to Ann Arbor because at least they live in the state of Michigan, right? Michigan State fans. But Ohio State, you're going to let them cross the border and invade our damn state? That was disgusting. That was more disgusting than even the score of the game. And this is what happens when you have people that price out actual fans from being able to see the damn game. Because real fans would go to that game regardless of whether or not they thought they were going to win. So you're telling me there's a chance, right? They've got the Dumb and Dumber in their head, whether they have a chance or not. It never should come to that. It never should come to that. Your home stadium, especially that one in Ann Arbor, should never be oversold that badly to that enemy, to that rival. Ridiculous. So I have no qualms for that. I have no quarter for that. And it just makes me hate scalping even more. And the free market says, yeah, they can resell their ticket to whoever, but the fan in me says that you're an asshole and you shouldn't have season tickets after that. And any Michigan fan that sells their season tickets to an Ohio State fan should have their season tickets revoked. Revoked. Absolutely revoked, as far as I'm concerned. That should not be a thing. That is ridiculous. So I feel very passionate about that. But continuing, he says, I also used to be against the AI summaries that Google provides until I started checking its sources. When the AI summary uses reliable sources, it actually provides accurate information and becomes a really convenient tool for users. A perfect example is the previous FLITE Chat, where you were looking for the definition of anemoia and had to struggle with searching through a link to find the response and had to read through information you weren't looking for before getting the actual answer to your question, when the AI summary would have answered your question right away. The times where I avoid the AI summary is when it's using things like Facebook and Reddit as sources, but when the sources are legit, then I find the AI assistant pretty reliable. Well, in a situation where I'm not, like, recording, Alex, yeah, I can check sources. I'm not going to sit here and check sources while I'm recording. So I can't trust AI like that when I'm recording. And I just inherently Like, if I have time to check sources, that's one thing. But I've seen AI get things wrong even when it is quoting a right source because sources change as well, right? And Reddit is not a source. It summarizes Reddit way too much to suit me. So for me, if it takes me an extra few minutes like it did when I was checking the definition last week, then so be it. I want to get it right, and I'm going to get it right as far as I'm concerned with respect to that. So yeah, I don't mind checking sources and pushing past the AI for that. I could use the AI as a basis, as an idea of okay, what am I going to look for? But then I got to find the actual source. I got to find exactly what says what with respect to whatever it is that I'm trying to talk about in that regard, and I have no problem doing that. He says, I recently saw Wicked for Good, but it was a unique experience because we did one of those AMC private rentals. The reason we did this is because we have our 6 month old baby and we were not about to take her into a crowded event movie like this. So we assembled about 18 other people and rented the theater. Wow, really? Did all that just for the baby? Okay. He says the total for the rental was $249, so it came out to about 13 bucks per person, which wasn't bad at all. A few people in our circles also brought their babies since it was a more intimate setting, and it honestly was a pretty smooth experience. There was little to no crying or screaming. As for the movie watching experience itself, it was fun, almost like watching a movie with friends in a really, really big living room. I was a little concerned that people would be overly chatty due to the private nature of the screening, but everyone was respectful, and when they had to talk, people would just whisper to each other. Obviously, this isn't the type of thing where we can just always do it when we want to go to the theater, because finding 18 other people who want and are available to see a movie can be pretty difficult, but this was a great solution to being able to watch an event movie while it's still out in theaters. Yeah, definitely like a once in a while thing that you could do that. And also, you got to be selective in terms of you're going to do it with, because obviously the 18 people that you picked are individuals that you know that are respectful of other people's time in a movie theater. Not every friend or person in your family or whatnot is respectful of that, right? I mean, I don't know too many, like, I don't have too many friends whatsoever now that aren't respectful of that, but I had some in the past that weren't, and that's part of why they're not friends now in that regard. Because it's like, don't answer your phone during the theater whatsoever. Like, well, why? What is wrong with you? What are we on about? No, absolutely not. So anyway, he says, as for the movie itself, it was decent, pretty on par with the first Wicked. The Wizard of Oz is pretty much required viewing for this one. There was a small, very handful of people at our screening who've never seen The Wizard of Oz, and they were lost at certain points because the movie definitely assumes you're familiar with the original story. There's also a quite surprising twist at the end that hints at the possibility of more Wicked movies to come, but I won't say any more in case you decide to eventually watch these. That's interesting because I have been told by fans of Wicked that there is no connection to The Wizard of Oz whatsoever, and that these should not be considered prequels or sequels to The Wizard of Oz at all. But you're saying that it still relies on your knowledge of certain things from The Wizard of Oz in order to be able to see it, which I'm fine with that because obviously I own The Wizard of Oz. I've seen it multiple times as a kid. So it's not that I am unfamiliar with the story whatsoever, but that is interesting that it draws upon it to the point where you're suggesting that somebody that has not watched The Wizard of Oz will be lost. I don't know if everybody would agree with that, but that is what you were saying. Okay, interesting. He says another movie I recently watched for the first time is Edge of Tomorrow. I read the manga miniseries that this movie is based on a few years ago, and I've been wanting to watch this movie ever since. I would always just miss it when it was streaming. I'd planned to watch it on HBO Max, but then a few days later it would have moved to an app I didn't have. And then it was available on an app I had. I would simply forget to check rather, and only realize later that I could have watched it all that time. Has something similar ever happened to you where you tried to track down a movie but it just kept eluding you? Um, no, not a movie because like for me, more of what you're the second part where you're talking about where you just forget and like get preoccupied with other things. That happens to me with all kinds of movies. So I there's multiple movies that just I forgot this was here and just didn't watch it before it got removed from the service or whatever. The last time I was watching a show and I was in the middle of watching it and then they took it off before I could finish it was Battlestar Galactica. I still have not watched more than season 1 of the sci-fi reboot of Battlestar Galactica. At some point I need to sit down and watch all of it Is it on Peacock now? I'm pretty sure it's on Peacock now. This was a while ago. Well, according to Google, no, it's not on Peacock anymore. That's unfortunate. But either way, that's really the only time I can remember of a show that like I was in the middle of watching and they took it off the service before I could finish it, and I don't know where it is anymore in that regard. Or I don't know that it's on a service anymore that I can just subscribe to and watch with the subscription without it being video on demand or something like that. But either way. He says, as for Edge of Tomorrow itself, it's a fun action movie with a Groundhog Day type of mechanic. This is a fun trope that you usually don't see in pure action movies, so they were able to do some cool things you usually don't see with these stories. You could have talked spoilers. I own this movie. I've seen it multiple times. I thoroughly enjoy Edge of Tomorrow for a number of reasons. And yeah, it is a Groundhog Day type scenario, but definitely a more manipulated version of it, if you will, accidental and manipulated. And also there's a plot device involving it where there isn't one necessarily with Groundhog Day, that's the magic of Groundhog Day. This isn't magic though. This is like war, like science fiction war. But it is really good. I mean, Tom Cruise, directed by Doug Liman, director of the Bourne Identity and Go and whatnot. So yeah, really good. I really liked it. I saw that movie in the theaters. I saw that in IMAX when it came out. I remember that. He says, I finished part one of Stranger Things' final season, and the ending left me with major chills. It was a crazy moment, and the show's conclusion at the end of this month is sure to be insane. It was cool to hear you've undertaken the challenge of watching the whole show this month. One friendly piece of advice I have: try not to look at the episode titles before you're actually watching it. Knowing the titles ahead of time could ruin some cool things. Each episode shows you the episode's actual title at the end of the opening credit intro sequence, so you'll still get to see them anyway, but they're best experienced as a surprise. One of Season 5's episode titles is a cool callback to one of the episode titles from the very first season. Yeah, especially with streamers, titles and descriptions, like, that is a thing, like, that you have to be, because whoever writes them, and this isn't just a Netflix problem. I've seen this problem on HBO Max. I've seen this problem on Disney Plus. Whoever writes these descriptions has no concept of like surprises and has no concept of a spoiler moratorium whatsoever. If the person's about to watch the show, don't assume that they've already seen it. Don't assume that they're just going into it. Like, you're going to give them a damn synopsis of whatever it is in the episode. So it's like, oh, well, and here's this and da da da. It's like, no. Can we just watch it? Whatever it is, even for like Big Bang Theory, I don't care. It's a sitcom, whatever. I don't care. Like, maybe I don't want to be spoiled on how the funny joke that's going to happen in this particular episode. Don't write it in the damn descriptor or in the title. It's like, yeah, I've been through that before. So yeah, I'll be on my guard for that. There's no question. But thank you for the heads up on that. All right, and last week I was asking Alex if he was the one that mentioned the whole thing about the pronunciation of the name Ra's al Ghul, and he says, yes, I was the one who brought up the question of Ra's al Ghul's pronunciation. I had looked into it, and apparently there were a lot of Arabic-speaking people proclaiming that the Raish pronunciation is a bastardization of the Arabic language, and that the closest way to properly pronounce his name would be the Raz pronunciation. Ever since I learned about that, I made it a point to always say Raz, because it sucks when you're part of a culture and you hear people constantly mispronouncing something from your language. Yeah. So this is something that I definitely at some point want to talk to Scott, my podcast brother from Squadcast Media, and also Dave the Film Junkie about, because they're like the resident Batman the Animated Series fans, and they really, everybody else in Vodka Stream I think pretty much says Raish, but like, specifically the part that you just brought up about how if there are Arabic speaking people that say that pronunciation is a bastardization of the Arabic language and that Raz is better, like more culturally appropriate, then I'm going to go with the culturally appropriate version. I'm going to do that. I'm just going to do that. I'm no longer great. You know what it's like? It's almost like the GIF thing, only stronger, because this is actually cultural. This is a culture saying, stop mispronouncing our name, pronounce it right. And I would have to listen to that culture. But thank you for reminding me, because yeah, that's a topic at some point that I do want to discuss with them and finally hash out, if you will. He says, so apparently the Oxford word of the year is rage bait. It's very unfortunate we live in a society and cultural moment where the concept of rage bait is so prevalent it gets recognition as the word of the year. Sigh. Yeah, that's social media's fault. social media and the algorithm, that's where it comes from. That's why if we were not as active on social media and if we weren't as enslaved to it, then it wouldn't be a thing, but that's a whole different ball of wax, whole different conversation. But here we go. He says, and now finally Star Trek. I watched another trio of episodes from The Next Generation. Yes, you were still in season 4 if I recall correctly. So you said first up was Cupid. Oh, what did he think about this one? He says, yeah, no thanks. Yeah, I am not surprised. I'm really not a fan of these episodes of Star Trek that are set on a mock Earth or in Earth's past, he says. They are consistently the worst episodes of Star Trek for me. There were multiple moments where I stopped and thought, what show am I watching again? I've never skipped episodes of Star Trek because I'm determined to watch it all, but the urge was rather strong with this one. Yeah, it's not the best episode. No, it's not. It's not the best. It's certainly not the best Q episode at all. You might have already seen the best Q episode, truthfully. They shot Q from this season 3. Although, you know what? There's one or two that are really good down the road. Especially, there's one in the 6th season that's really good. A really good Q episode between him and Picard. But yeah, not one of the best for sure. Then he says, next I watched The Drumhead. Oh, this is going to be quite a flip, quite a whiplash effect. He says, now that was more like it. This episode was a much better overall experience. Back to the Enterprise in the wider galaxy. Thank you very much. Yep. Yeah, The Drumhead is a much stronger episode. He says, from the viewer's perspective, Sati is so annoying. It's like, really, lady? You're questioning Picard's loyalty after we've spent 5 seasons following him around and seeing the type of person he is? It's absurd. It was satisfying when Admiral Henry got up in the middle of Sati's rambling nonsense and just walked out of the room. Agreed. Completely agreed. Especially the thing that really pissed me off that Sati did, I probably mentioned this earlier when Amr talked about that episode, was when she's like, have you fully recovered from your experience with the Borg? And I'm like, would you ask him that question? You're asking him that question to intentionally antagonize him because it hasn't even been a year. It has not even been a year since he was assimilated and was forced to lead an assault against 40 starships, destroying 39 of them and killing over 11,000 Starfleet officers, men, women, and children on those ships. Seriously. Something that continues to poison him to this day. I will not spoil where all of this goes because, man, do they really go in some really dark directions with respect to the impact that Wolf 359 had. And you see it from his perspective and you see it from other people's perspective, but just seriously, you're pressing him on that as far as him being a traitor, so he just willingly gave himself up to the Borg? Really? Has he completely... just... Oh, that fries me every time that I see it. I'm like, you stupid little... Yep. Very annoying. Absolutely. Could not agree with you more. Alex also said this episode provided some interesting commentary on conspiracy theories and letting your thoughts get too carried away. Oh yeah, there's absolutely some allegories, especially the way Worf was acting, and the contrast between him and Picard and what Sati was doing. There are absolutely some allegory. It's really about McCarthyism. The Drumhead is really an allegory for McCarthyism back in the 50s, but it absolutely could apply to now. Oh, absolutely. It could most certainly apply to a lot of the rhetoric and misinformation and disinformation and assumptions that are being made now about stuff going on in the world. There's no question about that. Then he says, finally, I watched Half a Life. In the opening monologue, as soon as Deanna said, my mother is aboard, I thought, oh boy, here we go. I'd still much rather a Loxana episode than an Earth-based episode, though, he says. The only times I personally care to see planet Earth in Star Trek is if we're seeing it in the present, like in some of the original series movies. Really? You don't even want to see Earth then? Like Earth in the future? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I kind of get that. I get the perspective of you don't want to hang around Earth because that would be boring. You want to see the space exploration, but they don't go to Earth that often. I wouldn't say. No, I mean really in the shows and in the movies, it's not like they don't start from Earth all the time in that regard. So yeah, it doesn't bug me when they go to Earth, to be honest with you. But I also like the alternate history stuff and the stuff that you don't necessarily care for. Like a mock Earth or an Earth's past, which they did a lot of that in the original series. Yeah, that doesn't bother me. It really doesn't bother me at all, to be honest with you. But it's all subjective. He says, when you think of Majel Barrett in regards to Star Trek, Do you primarily see her as Nurse Chapel or Luoxana Troy? I personally see her more as Nurse Chapel since that was my first exposure to her, but I will admit she does a great job in portraying Luoxana. I can see my perspective of who I primarily see her as shifting if she ends up having way more appearances as Luoxana than she did as Chapel. Okay, I've got a third option that I'm gonna like throw into the head here. I think of her more as the computer because she is. Like, she's the voice of the computer. And she was also the voice of the computer in the original series. She just did it in a very different register. It was very monotone, like barking, analysis complete. Like, she was very much like 60s roboticized in terms of her voice, but it's absolutely still her. It is absolutely Major Barrett Roddenberry. And so, yeah, they just, it's a more pronounced, like, humanistic voice, female voice aboard the Enterprise. And that was a moment. And there's a without spoiling things too much, there is a moment where we hear that voice in one of the movies, and also where we hear that voice in one of the Paramount Plus TV shows, and it does, it does hit the emotions to hear that computer voice again, because it's the voice, seriously, all 7 seasons of TNG, and that's the computer voice. So to me, honestly, when I think of Major Barrett Roddenberry, I think of the computer. I do. I really do. And it's not that I don't think of Chapel. It's not that I don't think of Loxana. And obviously, she had more range as a character. With Loxana, there wasn't a whole lot that she was able to do as Chapel in the original series. And there's a lot of, that's kind of symbolized now with what Jess Bush is doing with the character in Strange New World. She's filling in a lot of the character gaps that weren't filled in the original series for Christine Chapel in Strange New Worlds, which I really like. That's one of the things that I really like about the Paramount Plus shows. But yeah, I mean, to me, three iconic characters, right? Chapel, Loxana, and the computer voice. But for me, it's the computer voice. That voice. I know that voice. I hear it. I know what it is. It's the Enterprise computer. We're all set to go. That type of thing. So that is my answer. So I'm throwing a third a C answer in there, an A answer, not answer A, not answer B, but answer C to throw kind of a curve in that. He says they really just blew up a sun in this episode. If this episode were released today, this would likely be an extended flashy sequence with crazy graphics and the Enterprise having to evade dangerous solar flashes or something. Maybe, perhaps. Yeah, I mean, if they have the visual effects to do it and if they're trying to appeal to today's audience, yeah, totally. I mean, obviously the audience in 1990s watching the show is going to be different than an audience now trying to watch the show. Can I get anybody that got into Star Trek, into the like other than you and Amr? Can I get anyone that got into Star Trek like during the Kelvin timeline stuff or whatever to like go back and watch these older episodes even from the 90s? No, not really, because it's too old for them. So it's all generational in that regard. But I hear you. I hear you. He says we saw a much more serious side to Loxana than usual in this episode. She wasn't just hamming it up as usual, which made this far and away the best Loxana episode up to this point. I particularly enjoyed the bedroom debate scene between her and Timothy, which was sneakily a commentary on old age and nursing homes. I agree with you. I will tell you that there was an episode involving Loxana that Amr watched on one of his most recent watch updates that is even more serious than this. And there's also she pops up in another one of the Trek shows. I will not say which one, but she pops up in another one of the Trek shows as well and has some real strong emotional moments in that show as well. So they did they did give her a range of character where it's like, okay, she's not just going to be the comic relief. She's not just going to be the goofy person. We're going to give her some stuff some meat on the bones of the script and the character development to chew on for certain episodes. Not every episode, but certain ones. So yeah, I'm with you. This is one of the stronger Loxana episodes for sure. He says there's also some commentary on cultural differences. In the real world, we know that historically Nigerian Igbo tribes used to kill baby twins because twins were viewed as a sign of evil spirits. We can comfortably say that this is an objectively wrong and evil stance, but these tribes would likely defend this practice as a cultural tradition, so who's in the right here? How far can we allow people to commit horrific acts in the name of culture? It's an interesting question that this episode brings up. I'd never heard that about Igbo tribes. That is horrific. If that is indeed the case, like that is, no, that's utterly horrific. Yes, I'm with you on that. But yeah, no, it's Exactly, respecting one's culture, and whether it is, a ritual death or a ritual suicide, for other reasons, and that's going to come up in the next season. When you get to season 5, that's going to come up with one of the characters in the main cast for sure. That'll be an interesting ethical dilemma that I will be very curious to see what you think about that one. He says to end this episode review on a lighter note, I'll just say this. You may think Luoxana is the person aboard the Enterprise that's most devastated by Timothy's upcoming death, but no, the person who's truly most shaken up is Picard. With Timothy's death, Luoxana will surely go back to placing Picard in her sights. Poor Jean-Luc thought he was finally free. Next episode is called The Host, Live Long and Prosper, Alex. Alex, all I will say about that is her sights get set elsewhere. I won't say where, and I won't say how, but I will just say that the next time that you see her, I'm pretty sure those sights will be set in a different direction, and it will be intriguing to see how that goes. I mean, I know how it goes, but it'll be intriguing to see what you think of it when you get to that particular episode. But as always, good sir, thank you for the feedback. It is indeed greatly appreciated. Looking forward to more of it pretty soon. And finally, we'll close things out with an email from Jared Cardos titled Strange Things with Warner Brothers. Now, he sent this on Friday at 10:18 p.m., so I gotta believe the merger is part of this particular email. So here we go. He says, Hey Ray, hope you're doing well. I had a pretty good Thanksgiving overall, though I'm sorry to hear about your teams losing. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it wasn't a great Thanksgiving. Other than the dinner. The dinner was awesome. Everything with my family and Shonda, that was amazing. That was awesome. That was great. Highlight of the weekend. Everything else, garbage, for sure, especially from a sports standpoint. He says, so I wanted to talk about something mentioned in the last chat, as well as the biggest and perhaps unfortunate thing that happened this week. Like you, I'm also binging my way through Stranger Things to try to make it for the series finale. I'm a little different in that I have seen some of it before, mostly seasons 1 and 2, and I started a little earlier, so now I've rewatched the seasons I've watched. I will say that I agree it's definitely a show that's up your alley. The first season is very good, so much so that I think if they decided to not continue after that, that it would still be a highlight of Netflix's originals. The second season is also really good. It expands on what came before with some great new characters and concepts. As of now, I'm in a bit of uncharted territory. I have vague ideas of certain characters coming up, but nothing big, but I'm excited to see where it goes next. Yeah, and I still am completely blind to it. I've been telling coworkers about this as well, that I know 3 things about this show. I know that Millie Bobby Brown's character's name is 11. I know that there's some villain named Vecna, and I know that there's a place called the Upside Down. That's all I know. Literally all I know about the show, truthfully, as far as like details for it. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. He says now for the big news that it looks like Netflix is going to be the studio that buys Warner Brothers' HBO Max. It definitely has a lot of potential problems, he said, but really this whole thing was a battle of bad decisions. There's been talk about them sticking with the theaters for the movies that are slated for release, but that implies that other movies will have the tiniest of theatrical releases and slim chances of physical release, if at all. Though I have seen one silver lining in this deal from talking to some people outside of the US. Since HBO Max is limited in its availability, with a lot of shows being licensed to different multiple channels and services in Canada and the UK, having everything be on Netflix would be a boon for them. Granted, it would be better overall if HBO Max just had the same widespread reach as Netflix, but that might not be in the cards. Also, I saw some fans suggest that since Netflix wasn't the one who had the tax write-off, they might be able to release Batgirl, which would be nice, but would it be worth the cost? I don't know how true that is. That's one of those, right? I call bullshit until somebody actually provides some like legal proof that that could be the case. Because I don't see that feels like fan fiction to me, Jared. Like if somebody provides actual evidence that yes, they could release Batgirl, that'd be one thing. But again, like you just said, would it be worth the cost? Would Netflix even want to spend money on doing that? And wouldn't that also be a DC Studios decision at this point, right? Wouldn't it have to be Gunn and Safran that would decide to do that? And for what purpose when they're trying to build their DCU? Like, why would they want to release that movie at this point in time? The onus shouldn't be on them to do that at this point in time. Maybe down the road at some point as some type of Elseworlds film, but I don't know. I am inclined not to believe that until I see actual evidence saying otherwise, or saying that it is the case definitively in a legal sense in that regard. But he says it's not the end of the world. For one thing, we don't know if it'll actually go through. It looks like every guild in Hollywood is contesting this decision, not to mention the chance of Paramount crying to drowsy Donnie, which might make the deal die in court. I doubt that, but he says one part of the story that I've noticed that I don't see a lot of talk about is the $5 billion breakup fee if the deal doesn't go through. So if it doesn't go through, Warner Brothers is still going to get a nice big wad of cash out of it, which is probably a smart move on their part. And who knows, maybe having the apparatus of a studio and printing physical media, maybe they'll actually let their movies show more on more than like 20 theaters and longer than a couple of weeks, and they start releasing more of their work on Blu-ray. The odds aren't likely, but stranger things have happened. No pun intended. But I think that'll do it for me this week. Not a lot to talk about other than that one big thing. I was kind of hoping that maybe the Supergirl trailer might come out, what with them showing off the costume at CCXP, but doesn't seem to be in the cards this weekend, at least as I'm writing this. If it suddenly pops up, I'll write up a little something. Thanks for reading, and looking forward to your future episodes. Thank you for writing. As always, Jared, we'll be talking about the Supergirl trailer later this week, because this week is when they're going to drop it. Obviously the best case scenario is if Warner Brothers didn't get sold. Like if it just remained a standalone studio in that regard. And somebody pointed out that the only reason it's being sold is corporate greed. And so the idea of like I don't like hostile takeover either, right? Like Paramount, like, well, we didn't win so now we didn't win our bet, so now we're gonna do the hostile takeover. I don't like that either because at the end of the day, you're playing with people's lives, you're playing with people's livelihoods, you're playing with people's their income and what they're doing for their careers in this regard, and those are not playthings to just toy around with just because you want to have the biggest market share with streaming, going forward in the streaming age in that regard. And that's what a lot of this is. So, it's a mess. And I went in my whole episode the other day and I talked on Vogstream the other night about why Netflix is the worst case scenario because of what it could potentially mean for theatrical and for physical media. It could be the death knell for both, as far as Warner Brothers is concerned in that regard, right? And so that means for the next 12 to 18 months, we should be prioritizing our physical media acquisitions with respect to Warner Brothers, just in case Netflix decides to, get rid of all that when they officially take over, after the regulatory stuff. And I don't take a whole lot of stock in the idea of Paramount going to Trump to change things. I really don't. Because one, I don't think that he cares nearly as much. I really don't. Because I think that all of these studio owners, I mean, we know that Zaslav and him have, like Zaslav has supported him a number of times. We know that he's talked to Iger and the others. We know that he has we just recently saw that he talked to Sarandos right before the deal went through and everything. And people associate him with the Ellisons because it's been very public lately that the Ellisons have been talking to him, and that Larry Ellison, the father of David Ellison, the Skydance Paramount CEO, is buddy with him. So that's been very publicly made. That's the public one, right? But all of these studio owners, all these one percenters have been talking to him. And that included Tim Cook at Apple's been talking to him. Jeff Bezos at Amazon's been talking to him. Those circles talk to him because they all believe in deregulation and they all want, some type of inside track, with the DOJ or whatever it is, regulatory practices to do what they're going to do. So, yeah, do I think that the president cares that much about this particular aspect compared to other things? No, I don't. I really don't. So it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I remember there was scrutiny because he was angry at CNN and he really wanted to block the AT&T Time Warner deal, but that went through because the fact of the matter is vertical integration and deregulation is precisely what he and people like him stand for. So, I don't think he has a whole lot of ill will for Netflix, regardless of how the Ellisons and Paramount feel about it. So this idea that they're just going to cry to him and he's going to block it, yeah, I don't know. I really, I don't see that being that big of a deal. And, a lot can happen in the next 12 to 18 months with respect to, what's going on in the country, what's going on in the world, and certainly what's going on with the regulatory scrutiny for that particular deal. I am inclined to believe that 12 to 18 months from now, it's going to be made completely 100% official and it's going to go through as far as Netflix owning Warner Brothers. And, then we will deal with the changes that they make wholesale from that point on in that regard. Until then, we enjoy Warner Brothers as is and, see what we can make as fans in that 12 to 18 months before things more than likely will change radically with respect to the industry and that particular studio. But as always, Jared, thank you. as always, for the feedback. Greatly appreciated. Looking forward to more of it next week, good sir. And that'll do it for this week's episode of Flight Chat. Thank you so much for everybody that sent in feedback. Thank you to John Rossler. Thank you to Wally Mustafa for returning. Hope you're feeling better, man. I appreciate that. Thank you to Alex De Silva. Thank you to Jared Cardos, everyone that sent in emails this week. If you're listening to this show and you want to join the feedback circle with everybody that sent in emails tonight, and you want to talk about anything movies, TV, and other sort of media related, whether it's the Netflix, Warner Brothers stuff, or anything else going on with movies, TV, and other assorted media, you know where to find me on Threads and on Instagram at the FlightCast, on Blue Sky at FlightCast. You can comment on the posting of this episode on the FlightCast YouTube channel itself. There's also the FlightCast Facebook page, and of course, I can be reached by email at ray@theflightcast.com. All right, take care. Stay safe out there. Have a great week, and I will see you all next time. Take it easy.